This is it, the return. Returning the keys. Today it begins. I am not lamenting those guys. Those guys were the single most incompetent landlords I've ever dealt with in my life. They're so incompetent, it's actually the official move-out day where they move everybody out. They're in the office, but they're not open. Sign on the door, please do not knock. The consummate sign of who those people are. But I never have to deal with those guys. Well, unless they try and screw you over on the security deposit, but, we'll see how that goes. But it begins today. We dropped off the keys. I'm officially a dude who lives in a van down by the river. Oh, man. This is where the journey begins. I guess it begins by going to the post office for now. Might be too early for impressions, or I'm too tired. I literally stayed up all night to make sure everything in that apartment was perfect. Ever mop a door on an outside shed? Yeah, I did. That's how clean I like things to be. How thorough I tend to be. Let's see if my van life is just as thorough as we begin. That footage was recorded 10 weeks ago. The end of July, I handed in the keys to the apartment. Ever since then, I have been in this van full time. I've not slept anywhere else. I have parked at a friend's driveway. But then I got a chance to get out and just see some things that I actually hadn't even seen. Lakes, streams, traveling by, all sorts of great things. Indeed, van life does give you some really cool things to see. And in this video, I want to give you just a little bit of the rambling positives and a little bit of the rambling negatives about the experiences that I've had in my first 10 weeks. Although I'm so looking forward to getting out of state college and moving on and giving you guys better experiences of the rest of the country. Well, what are the positives? I would say probably the biggest positive for me right now is learning a little bit more about food management, balancing processed and canned and preserved and good old regular fresh foods. I've always been a fresh food guy. I just do not like eating processed foods. I think vegetable oils, which is in pretty much 100% of everything you buy with a barcode at the store, are toxic. I avoid them like the plague. But unfortunately, I've been eating a little bit more processed and preserved foods because I can only store so much fresh food. And if I the size of my refrigerator, if I just buy fresh foods, I can only have on board like maybe a week worth of fresh foods. And that's kind of problematic. I don't want to have to get out there and boondock with that. So I'm learning how to balance a little bit of fresh with balancing it with a little bit of processed. I'm finding canned vegetables are pretty good. And how to manage those types of things. I'm learning how to manage my space quite a bit. So, of course, we have, when I first moved into the van, I bought 2 giant bins. One of those is for, I don't use cat litter, I use equine pellets for cat litter. Way better, it's basically compressed pine pellets. So I have to have a big bin for those. And then I also had a big bin for cat food. I'm like, okay, the cats have 3 months of food on board here, and I have about 1 week. This is wrong. And so I cut back the cat food a little bit and use that second bin for stored people food. So now I actually get out and I have a lot of beans and rice back there. I have canned foods. just a few other odds and ends that are really good to have around. So these are all things that I have that I'm keeping on board. So what I'm basically trying to do is I'm trying to have about 3 weeks of food on board, so that if I need to go boondocking in the middle of nowhere for a little bit, I can sustain myself for a while. And 3 weeks is about what I have. Water, I'd probably say 2 weeks might be a little bit closer. But 3 weeks in an emergency situation, I just cut back some coffee a little bit and use a little bit less water in that respect. But these are some of the positives. You learn a whole lot more about who you are, and I'm hoping to learn a lot more as I actually leave state college. But really, I am learning quite a bit more about who I am and what I'm doing, and just getting the fullness out of life. As Thoreau said, suck all the marrow out of life. Hopefully without choking on the bone. But we'll see what happens here. So those are really some of the big positives that I've seen in 10 weeks in living in the van full time.
Many people look at the van lifestyle and just so wish to be there. You wish to see all the beautiful places that you're parking and all of the just the wonderful scenery. And sometimes we forget that those of us in a van, I still have to find time to work. I still have to live by the constraints of a budget, and I still have to be cautious about what I'm doing and where I'm going. And while I am enjoying things like the autumn weather, watching the leaves fall from the trees, I'm enjoying a little bit more outside than I have in the past. One of the things we have to remember is that there are indeed downsides to the van life. And the fact of the matter is, we have to remember that life is messy. No matter if you live in your house, you live in an apartment, you live in a van down by the river, then regardless what ends up happening is life can be messy, and sometimes negative consequences are out there. And so to provide such a balanced view and a balanced picture of the whole van life idea, what I wanted to do also is share with you a few of the negative experiences that I've had. And maybe I should have sat down with a piece of paper for a while and talked a little bit more about them, but I just wanted to do this one right from the heart, just to see what boils out and see the types of things that I would come up with on just the spur of the moment. But there are indeed downsides, and while the beautiful scenery is one thing, here we're going to discuss a few of those downsides.
So what are my downsides? There's a few, obviously. The biggest thing I'm struggling with right now is the time management aspect. There was a time when I had my home office and working from home, and I've done that for about a decade. You learn how to separate your life from your home. So what I would oftentimes do, I would get up in the morning and I would take care of just a few things, and then I'd work a little bit, and then I would take a couple hour break. And then I'd come back, work on just a little bit more, and then you shut down the office for a while, and I would go into the kitchen, and I enjoyed food as a hobbyist, just making things or just cleaning the house or stuff like that. And then I would go back up and then work for a while. I'm finding a difficult balance in the van because it's such a tight space. The one space that I have is my bedroom and my kitchen and my office and my living space. And so it's really difficult to separate those out. So whereas I used to turn everything off to make dinner without any computers, now it's just too easy to just leave the computers on. But I've also found that some of the things that I want to watch is right around dinner time, and so it makes sense for me to enjoy dinner time watching something without working. So maybe it's just the time management issues that I need to shift things. I'm still trying to live under the time management constraints I had when I had the house, but I did not realize I need to shift that. But I also don't think it's worth shifting it until I'm actually officially on the road. I'm not parking at a friend's driveway every night. I'm not waking up in the same place. I'm not, using their shower and their water for coffee in the morning. I think that when I'm actually more officially on my own, that I will get a better chance to see what and how I need to change things in time management. Of course, the next downsides is I can't store as much. Obviously, I don't have nearly as big of a refrigerator for the fresh foods. I talked about liking the fresh foods. So those are some of the downsides. And then occasionally, now I did not plan on being in Pennsylvania in October. It's getting cloudy and it's getting dark fast, which means I have more limited time when I can use my computers. I can take my batteries from empty to full in about 3.8 hours of bright direct sunlight. As of today, the batteries are full. The sun keeps on hiding behind those clouds. And so I have to keep on adjusting my ISO here because it'll cloud, no cloud, cloud, no cloud. In reality, as long as I take care of most of my computer work during the day, I can generally rely on not having to think about power. But if I have to use that big computer anytime past 5 o'clock, I have to watch my batteries. I have to watch my power consumption. So on the positive, I'm learning a lot more about power consumption, when I can do things, what types of things I should be doing on what computers. But on the downside is I'm not nearly as free to do as much prep, thinking, and testing as I used to do, which used to be done really late at night. So probably part of that time management is doing most of my work really late at night. Basically produce for myself a second shift working is probably going to be the better option for me, because those computers I use for that, they can actually be run on cell battery chargers, So with that being said, I just need to learn how to tinker more in the afternoon, but that's also when I would like to hike around. So the downsides for me is still figuring out how to balance the work and the life and the pleasures. Obviously, the other big downside right now is the distribution stuff. This might be resolved, or we might be heading on into the apocalypse. I don't know, but many grocery stores are becoming empty. And this is the problematic thing, because as I was talking to somebody the other day, I said, you know what? If I were still living in a house right now, I'd be going to the store and stocking up on canned foods. Even though I don't really like that as much, I would. And I'm still thinking, since I have a storage shed, of getting, ramen noodles, a bunch of canned food, and just stocking up my storage shed for in the event it is the apocalypse. But then I'd have to come across the country back to Pennsylvania in the middle of the winter. Because I don't have room on board here to stock tons of canned foods. I could stock, I really can't stock a lot. My van is pretty full. And that's really the downside, is that I don't have the ability to prep and prepare as much as I probably would like to. Just because of the nature of our current world situation. If we didn't have our current world situation and I could rely on any store at any time to get anything I need, that's true. But I'm walking through the grocery stores right now and it's getting pretty empty. And I don't think that the things that are being proposed are going to solve some of those problems, but we'll see what happens down the road. We'll see, and hopefully they do. So those are kind of my downsides. I realize this is a little bit more rambly, but the fact is I'm still learning more. I've been in the van full time for only 10 weeks. And I'm trying to learn the most about myself and the most about the world that I can in this time. And I am so looking forward to getting out of state college. Leading me to the last thing, the last negative, I'm really going to miss my friends. I'm an introvert, and generally I just don't want to be interrupted by a lot. But at the same time, I realize that the times that I do come together with friends are some of the best times I have. And that doesn't mean that, hey, I'm secretly an extrovert. It's that I need that time to recharge, but I also need some expression. So hopefully as I'm traveling along the road, I will get a chance to meet a lot more people, make a lot of new friends, but I'm really going to miss the old friends that I have. I'm going to miss the old Bible studies and the old church services and chatting with all the different people that I usually talk to. I'm going to miss the ability to just pop in on friends and things like that. But with all that being said, there are downsides to this lifestyle and there are upsides. And I'm hoping on this channel to be able to do a good job of balancing the upsides from the downsides and figure out the best things overall to do. So with that, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next time.